In the land of freedom and liberty, millions of black men, women, and children were forced into servitude for centuries. Their bodies were bought and sold. Their labor fueled an empire. This is the untold story of one of the darkest chapters in American history, black slavery. It began across an ocean. In the early 16th century, European powers embarked on the transatlantic slave trade, a journey that would tear apart millions of lives. For over 300 years, Africans were transported to the Americas in brutal conditions, an operation driven by greed and the desire for labor. The transatlantic slave trade was one of the largest forced migrations in human history. Over 12 million Africans were shipped to the New World, but only a fraction survived the harrowing journey known as the Middle Passage. Once in the Americas, these men, women, and children were sold into a life of forced labor, most often on plantations. In the southern colonies, agriculture, particularly tobacco, cotton, and sugar, became the backbone of the economy. The wealth of an entire nation was built on the backs of the enslaved. The lives of the enslaved were marked by unimaginable hardship. Their bodies were property, their families torn apart. But even in the most oppressive conditions, the human spirit found ways to resist. They were forced to work from sunrise to sunset, and if they refused or tried to run, they were punished, whipped, beaten, sometimes even killed. But they never gave up. They found ways to preserve their dignity, their traditions, and their families. Enslaved people created secret networks of communication. Through songs, through stories, and even through small acts of rebellion, they resisted their captors in ways that history has often overlooked. Despite the odds, enslaved people fought back. Some escaped, risking everything for freedom. Others rose up in defiance to challenge the system of slavery. Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831 and the bravery of people like Harriet Tubman were examples of radical resistance to an unjust system. Turner's revolt was one of the bloodiest uprisings, while Tubman's Underground Railroad helped free over 300 people from slavery. As the abolitionist movement gained strength, the fight to end slavery became a moral imperative. Men and women, black and white, fought for the freedom of millions. Frederick Douglass, who escaped slavery himself, became one of the most powerful voices against the system. His writings and speeches helped galvanize the movement. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all slaves in Confederate-held territories were free. But the battle was far from over. The Civil War raged on. The Emancipation Proclamation did not immediately free all slaves, but it was a turning point in the war. It fundamentally changed the character of the conflict, shifting the Union's goals from just preserving the nation to also ending slavery. In 1865, with the Union's victory in the Civil War, the 13th Amendment was ratified, officially abolishing slavery. But the scars of slavery would remain deep in the fabric of American society. Though slavery was legally abolished, the legacy of oppression did not end. Black Americans faced new forms of systemic discrimination, including segregation, voter suppression, and violence. The road to equality would be long and fraught with obstacles. After slavery ended, it didn't mean that black people were truly free. The laws changed, but the hate and violence didn't. It just took a different form. The civil rights movement of the 1960s sought to challenge these oppressive systems. But the fight for racial justice continues. The echoes of slavery still shape America today. To understand America's present, we must confront its past. Slavery may have ended over 150 years ago, but its legacy continues to haunt this nation. From racial inequality to the criminal justice system, the impact of black slavery is still felt in every corner of American society. Understanding slavery is crucial to dismantling the systemic racism we see today. It's not just about remembering the past, it's about addressing the ongoing injustice. The story of slavery in America is a story of immense suffering, but also of resilience and resistance. It is a story that must never be forgotten, and it is a story that calls for us all to ask, how far have we truly come, and how much further do we still need to go?